Hello and welcome to the Perth Gaming Crew Show, episode 25. People of Perth and beyond, you have probably noticed something is different. Pat is out, and today we have a special guest. Johnny is in. Johnny, welcome to the show. Great to have you on.
Thanks for having me, John. Wanted to reassure your listeners, your viewers, that no, Pat is not in some elaborate witness protection scheme disguise. He's sitting the show out, and thanks to a mutual friend of John's and ours, you get two Johns for the price of one today.
I know, double dose. Luckily, people of Perth and beyond. So Pat is unfortunately unable to make it today, but Johnny, it's great to have you on the show instead. We really appreciate you also following the show for quite a while, and I know you've got a huge depth of gaming knowledge. So really excited to cover all of that. Today we are going to cover. We haven't done this yet, so we're going to cover our 6 favourite Switch exclusive games. We've come up with a list together. I've got 3 that I absolutely had to talk about, and Johnny does too. Before we get the show on the road, though, Johnny, one thing we do ask, and Pat will demand that I ask this, and he's not wrong in thinking this, but we do like to ask all our guests, what is your favourite game of all time and why?
Okay, so this was... Look, it's a tough one, and it probably changes depending on what day of the week it is, but hands down, usually my answer 99% of the time will be Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. I am
solid.
A bit of a Super Nintendo tragic, really like my overhead Zelda style, going back to the original NES. But for me, that I think that maybe is a perfect game, and it's one that I revisit regularly, and still very much enthralled by its charm. Not the most difficult, by no means the most difficult Zelda. That's probably quite an not. I wouldn't say it's a very easy game, but it's certainly not a hard game. But it's just the perfect sort of length. So many charming elements. Visually, still holds up today, I think. And the replayability is just through the roof. It's an easy answer for me.
Yeah, nice, Johnny. Love it. That is an absolutely quintessential Zelda game too. Like it's got the dungeon aspects and the puzzle solving and those combat elements that are always engaging and satisfying. I love that game too. What a great pick. You are very much well at home on the podcast and definitely among Switch exclusive episodes. So that's great to hear. So we might kick it off. We're just going to tag team a bit here because when we came up with this list, people of Perth and beyond, we noticed that we did have very different interests and there's sort of something for everyone. And we might even have to pull off a 2-parter because anyone who owns a Switch or is new to the Switch kind of family will be well aware there are an absolute wealth of exclusives. You are not lacking for good options. So we might just start off with Johnny, your first pick, which I know you are very passionate to talk about. So take away the show. What's going on? What are we looking at?
So look, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. It's the game that got me on board with the Nintendo Switch. I'd held off until that point, and when the reveal of Smash Ultimate is what got me on board. And very kindly that year, Santa brought my household a Smash Ultimate Edition Switch with the Smash design Joy-Cons and all that jazz.
Yep.
It has been. I get so much out of it. There's so much content in it through all its different modes. I probably spend most of my time in the spirit mode, going through that sort of, and I know you guys have talked about this, that sort of museum aspect. Yep. And I can if I just need to sort of chill out, I'll just go in and spend my time in the spirit wall, having the little battles with all the kind of niche
Oh, so you quite
Yeah,
like that aspect of the game,
yeah,
like, because
yeah,
I know
yeah.
there was a bit of controversy around that. Like, some people thought it was a bit, long to do the Spirit of Light. I quite liked it myself, but you really get into that part.
I
That's
get into it. I like it.
yeah,
It's like I don't consider myself to be really good at Smash. Like I
yep,
know I've come across people who are quite like skilled and
yep,
and I don't classify myself as being good at it, but I thoroughly enjoy it.
yep.
Um, and I do love that aspect of the game that kind of drill down into um, I mean, the playable roster itself is huge, but then
Mm,
you go that next layer down of all the spirits and you can drill down into some really obscure stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's that deep appreciation that it just shows the love the developers have for all the different Nintendo and,
mm.
third party franchises that are represented in it. And it's amazing.
Yeah,
Having said that,
definitely.
once in a while, I'll try to get the guys together for a online session. I like getting the a friends only arena together and get some 4 or more player chaos happening. That's always a lot of fun.
It's intense, the gameplay. Like, it has that chaotic element about it. But I like that point you mentioned about just bringing all the franchises together and kind of like a museum of Nintendo-ness, so to speak. Like, this is like a candy shop for kids. Like, if you're exploring Nintendo for the first time, or if you're a veteran, you want to harken back to some old series and explore modern kind of takes on it. I do have to ask. So we did a special on Smash Brothers, and Pat and I talked about our favorite characters. Do you have a favorite character and a favorite stage at all that's really memorable for you at all, new or old?
Yeah, look, I've sort of gravitated, being a Zelda fan, I tend to gravitate.
Mm.
Link is just the most kind of pick up and play character. I notice, yeah, you got the footage of the Belmonts in the background, and I know I remember your episode, and I sort of liken using those characters. It's a bit like I liken it to picking the heavy characters from Mario Kart
Mm.
because they kind
Yeah.
of got
Yep.
they kind of got a chunkiness to the way they move.
Yeah.
It
Yeah. I
can be
getcha.
very
Yeah.
um, although they're kind of very kind of chunky and slow moving. It can be very like when I've had my online session with the fellas. It can be very entertaining and to land their final smash with the coffin
Oh yeah.
because it kind of
Yep.
comes out of nowhere and kind of befuddles everyone. So that can be fun. But I do get the point you guys were making about the chunkiness and sort of they're not the
Yeah.
most agile characters, especially when compared to your Links or many of your like your Fire Emblem characters who've got sort of
Mm.
more sort of nimble move sets.
Mm.
Um, yeah, in terms of favorite stage, look, I'm a big fan of that sort of classic era 8-bit gaming. So I love all the quirky, Ice Climber and Donkey
Oh,
Kong
nice.
stages,
Nice. This is.
especially for like a bit more of a silly battle amongst friends. Where, knocking people off these like 8-bit stages. It's just
Yep.
it kind of it kind of encapsulates what's great about Smash is that it can so seamlessly bring all these different aspects together that you wouldn't automatically think could gel, but
Yep.
so much of the time and that shows what a great job the developers have done to bring all that together in such a seamless way.
Yeah, lovely. No, I know exactly what you mean with the 2D Mario platforms moving across and the spinning kind of traps that you can mix with like modern fighters like Ken and Ryu, and it's just all ridiculous, but it's great because everyone gets their own bit of nostalgia and enjoyment from those franchises. What a banger! What a banger to start off with. There is a very good reason that Smash Brothers is one of the top-selling Switch games. And whether you're into fighting games or not, people of Perth and beyond, it's one that you could easily pick up for your library and just have a great time with experiencing game like all the characters and franchises
Yeah,
left, right, and center. Hey,
such a great party game. Yep,
yes,
people who have never played a video game will pick it up and they'll have a good time. Yeah,
yeah,
no, it's a winner.
nice, love it. Well, taking a bit of a left turn, almost like a U-turn. This game has been on my mind for a while, and it's not a game that many people will be that familiar with, and certainly not doesn't have that broad appeal and accessibility of Smash Brothers. But it is one that I wanted to. It was the one game that sat with me because I just felt like this game doesn't get enough airtime, and I loved it. And I always think the hallmark of a good game is if it stays with you when you've played it and you keep thinking about it and remembering the music, the gameplay, the iconic moments. So this is Shin Megami Tensei 5. Don't even ask me what it means. It's not even the name itself is not something that can, has a broad appeal. But the Shin Megami Tensei series has always been a Nintendo staple. And this game was first announced when the Switch was first announced. Its first lineup was announced. And it was the last game to come out with that initial lineup. What we're really looking at here is the best way I can describe it is kind of like the emo, dark, apocalyptic version of Pokemon. So I'm not a Pokemon fan, but I do love this whole apocalyptic JRPG, Japanese role-playing game vibe that this game just oozes out in the spades. You play as this character you can see here who's called the Nahabino and is this divine being in post-apocalyptic Japan where on one hand, you're playing as a school kid, a bit like in the Persona series where you're talking to your classmates and progressing the story only a little bit, but the core game is this huge open world, mostly open world, divided into segments where you are collecting deities and demons to fight, very much Pokemon style, but not with that kind of gentle ease of Pokemon that people love and know about those games. This is a really big game. It's very much a quintessential JRPG. It's one you do have to commit your time to. What really appeals to me most of all about it is the strong character designs and the colors and the music. And the whole time I played this game, I just felt like I was in another world, in another zone. I think it really portrays like it brings in a mix of religions, which some people can find offensive and some people can find fascinating. So it won't be for everyone, but it is an exclusive to the Switch library that I was enthralled by. Absolutely beautiful in terms of artistic direction. Johnny, have you played this game? What do you have? Have you seen much of the Shin Megami games?
I can't say I have, but
Yeah.
because I used to live in Japan,
Ah.
I got these style of games seem to have a lot of popularity in Japan. Like they just seem to be wall to wall. And
Yes.
I wonder if this is a series that I suspect this is a series that is maybe much bigger in Japan than it is in outside markets like here in Australia and the US, for example. But yeah, it looks. I mean, it's got an amazing art style. So I'm with you there, John. Like it's like I think we've had this kind of conversation before about like so many games, so little time, but I think it's probably something I've got to put on the list. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's the thing. I like to kind of preface it as it's not for everyone, but of all the games I played on Switch that I loved, this is one that it's constantly there, and I've absolutely loved it. And I've spoken before on the podcast about being a parent and time poor, and in Johnny and I both being in that situation. But there is actually a safe mode for this game, which is ultra
Ah.
easy. Not ashamed of it. So you can kind of cruise through the game, which is actually designed at its core to be quite difficult. And I'm not a big fan of grinding in RPG games and spending 5 hours on a battle. I don't have the time for it. But playing in safe mode was great. You could experience the visuals, experience all the kind of like all the little, just the little places the story goes in terms of ethical considerations, etc. And have a blast with it. So that's Shin Megami Tensei 5. It only sold 1 million copies, unlike Smash, which sold about 30 to 40 million, if I remember correctly. But one that is an absolutely brilliant Switch exclusive. Johnny, over to you. I think the next one we're going to be bringing up is one you mentioned that I haven't played, which is Ring Fit Adventure. Not a little game, so to speak. What are we looking at?
And Ring Fit, look, it's definitely a bit out there. It kind of falls into the category of sort of Nintendo get you out of your get you off the couch novelty. So it utilizes this unusual peripheral that
Oh, you got it there. Yeah,
you've
you
got
can
it
still
here.
buy those, can't you? Like you can still buy this game and those.
You
It's
can still
yep,
get the game. I'm pretty sure you can still get the game
yep,
and the peripherals.
yep.
Um, but it's sort of, it follows, it's very much in the tradition of sort of the Wii era of getting you up and moving. But this is where things kind of get interesting with this one is it's kind of got it's got multiple modes, a bit like Smash, but the mode that I've probably spent the most time in is this fitness based RPG,
Is that like
and
a single player story
yeah, it's
that?
like a single player
Okay, cool.
story. You
Okay,
show
cool, cool.
you actually the footage you've got up, it shows like the antagonist is this kind of Jimbro dragon. It's sort of, it's not said anywhere explicitly, but it's kind of, hinted at that he might be on some sort of substance, and
Sure looks like it.
you're on a bit of a, and he's kind of covered the lands in darkness, and your avatar comes across this mystical ring which is your becomes your means to battle the forces of the Jimbro dragon. And look, the less you think about the story, the better, because it is absolutely bonkers.
Yep.
But it's great fun. The battles, you have individual battles with the dragon sort of minions, and it's very much like an RPG, except your attacks are based, like, you have certain enemies that are weaker against yoga based activities, others against core strength based activities. So yeah, it's a quite a strange one that gets you up. You find yourself doing squats and planking and things like that. Definitely very good for someone who's works an office job and has
Mm-hmm.
probably too much of a sedentary lifestyle. This one gets you up and moving, and actually good fun. Yeah, the RP, you get as you go more and more into the RPG element, you get kind of more and more into the story, and it's certainly fun for onlookers, family and friends to. They can be quite amused watching you do all the activities that the game is getting you to do. So yeah, I had to pull it out as a quite a top pick in terms of Nintendo Switch exclusives, because I just don't think there's anything else out like there. And I guess the sad thing is Nintendo hasn't really done anything else with those peripherals. They haven't really come out with
Mm-hmm.
much that I'm aware of, at least in terms of making use of that peripheral for anything else. But yeah, it's a classic. You got to check it out if you ever get a chance.
Yeah, nice. Did you? I haven't played this. I remember when it came out, it was kind of all the rage. It had that kind of Wii Sports thing about it. That's like, on Nintendo's bringing out something, and it is quirky. You strap that ring, as you showed the people of Perth and beyond, to your thigh, and you can use it in different ways. Like you push
Yeah,
it together and you work on
yeah,
your abs and all this kind of thing. So
yeah. It's got
to
like
me,
an
it's quite. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
offline mode as well, where you can kind of
Oh, cool.
just sort of, you don't have to be in the RPG element and do your stretches and stuff. It's kind of amusing in itself. Yeah.
Nice. Oh, cool. So did you, with this game, like, were you attracted to this game because it had that physical element, or were you looking for that experience that came out with the Wii, or was it just because it was so different? Because it's hard for a game like this to offer single player and exercise, especially when we've looked at a lot of Nintendo's multiplayer party offerings like Golf and
Yeah.
Strikers, where they've had really thin single player experiences to their detriment, I think. But what you're saying is this game has that full single player experience. But was that what attracted you, or was it more going, no, I really want to get into the fitness and experiential side of it?
I think what it was is that um, Nintendo very long time ago unlocked the formula for emptying my wallet, and
Oh, yeah, yeah,
and
yeah, yep.
I think at the time I
You're
was
one of those. You're a
yeah,
true Nintendo
and
fan.
they seem to figure that out long ago. And I think how I got into this one is, at the time I was doing some Christmas shopping for my little girl. I was getting her one of the Mario Kart the Mario Kart racer things that they have the
The circuit, was that the circuit that
Mario
they?
Kart circuit.
I remember that.
I was buying the Luigi one for my daughter as a
Yeah,
birthday or Christmas present, and as I was going through the shopping cart, this flashed up as well, and I thought, oh damn,
yeah,
this looks mad. I got to try this out, and
yeah,
it wasn't a very, yeah, like I said, they just know how to get my money. Nintendo,
yeah.
they've known for a long time, and it's yeah, so it didn't take much to get me over the line for this novelty.
Nice. Nice. And I did want to circle back quickly, just with what you've talked about with Ring Fit and Shin Megami Tensei and Smash. There's a lot of talk about, the Switch 2, and will that be a upgraded premium version of Smash with new characters? For me, I would love to see the Shin Megami Tensei series represented in Smash. I think it would be wonderful. For me, it pulls me back in. Do you think Ring Fit Adventure would have a place and a stage for that game even, do you think?
Oh, look, it's hard to know where they'll go
Because
next
they
because it
have done the Wii Fit balance board thing. I think they've put the Wii
yeah,
Fit trainer or
true.
something in there as a character,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and look, and with Smash, although they've sort of released all the DLC now, all the stages and all the new characters and that kind of thing,
Mm,
they
mm,
still there's still little bits that drip out, like, and this is what I mentioned. One thing I've noticed that spending so much time in the spirit mode, that they still support it with like regular events, so
mm.
there'll be particular theme spirits. So a couple of weeks ago, when the new Castlevania Netflix series
Yep.
aired, that on in Smash they had a special Castlevania themed spirits event, and it ran over a couple of days. I had a look
Oh,
this
right.
morning, and they've got some theme about regal characters, so it's like
Okay.
Peach and stuff like that. So
Yep.
there's probably like room for more stuff, but yeah, it's kind of anyone's guess what the next
Mm,
generation of Nintendo hardware looks like. I
mm.
imagine we're pretty close to hearing something about it, because the Switch is kind of must be at the end of its life cycle, you would have thought.
Oh yeah, and
Yeah.
we're definitely going to be looking at all the new, Switch rumors and looking back at the Switch in a future episode. But I think like some of the stuff we've brought up today, and looking at what they did with Mario Kart with the 48 bonus tracks, and that being a Wii U game, wouldn't be surprised if they do a repeat success. Hands in the wallet already. Might see Ring Fit Adventure and Shin Megami Tensei on there. We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. So the next one we have is a little bit of a lighter tone compared to my previous offering. Um,
Such a classic,
so
though.
such a classic. This is truly probably my number one Switch game. It's very hard to pick a favorite. I've played this 3 times through. I've done all the collectibles. I've done all the extra levels, all that stuff, and I'm not even a completionist. Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze. This came out back in 2018. And it's a Wii U port, so we're talking about Switch exclusives, but people aren't buying the Wii U, and this is the way you access these games these days. Very Nintendo-y. I've loved the Donkey Kong Country series since I was a teenager. I originally got back into the SNES, and that was my favorite game there. And I think this game really brings out the spirit of that game and maintains all of those core elements, with the really varied, exciting level design, a character that's fun to use as a 2D platformer that I guess works for me. So Nintendo has, it's Mario's, it's Yoshi's, it's Kirby's. For me, it's Donkey Kong that works the best in terms of moving around the screen, and I like the higher level of difficulty that the game offers. Gorgeous soundtrack, just beautiful. You can just play it in the background, very relaxing, very soothing, and probably a little bit more depth to it than a lot of typical, and probably Zelda excluded because that's gorgeous too. But then some of the typical playful Mario, Kirby, Yoshi soundtracks, whereas it's got a bit more to it. I love the African safari vibe overall that Donkey Kong has. Yeah, but I absolutely just love this game, and I think it's actually a really good game for people to get into if they're looking for a 2D platform or a quintessential Nintendo franchise and they're not sure where to start. For those who don't know the Donkey Kong games, Country games, it's that left to right platformer. You can play with a friend. in this particular game, there are 6 different islands that all have their own theme that you can work through. None of the islands are the same, and none of the levels are the same. Just to me, this is just a pure joy game, and the collectibles, the amount of time, the time you need just to play through a level is, yeah, that moment to moment gameplay is fantastic. Johnny, are you familiar with this game or the series?
I haven't played this particular entry, but I was a big fan of the Donkey Kong Country games back on the Super Nintendo, being the Super Nintendo tragic that I am.
Yeah,
So a lot of love for the series, and this is another one I need to get on the list and try
build that
out.
backlog up.
Yeah, that another one to add to the list to play through. Yeah, because I it definitely brings out I think the best of that Super Nintendo series. You can see that from the visuals here. So yeah, no, but yeah, I haven't played this one yet. It from everything I've heard about it is super positive though.
Yeah, no, it's a lovely game, and it's a game that's aged really well. And you know, there's always commentary about the Switch hardware and what it can and can't do. And the best of the Switch games tend to use what limited processing power there is, and focus on things like the art style, strong contrasting colors, you know, big round simple shapes that are really clear, and Donkey Kong does all that quite well, I think. And I find it does it in a way that is still very visually appealing. I mean, from the footage we're looking at here, there's that depth in the background that I quite enjoy, but it's not overly stuffed with detail that you can't see what's happening on the screen. It gets not an easy balance to get. A lot of games struggle with that, which is why we don't actually see a lot of successful 2D platformers. The other thing I did want to mention about this game in particular is some people find the Donkey Kong games, and you'd know this from playing the original Donkey Kong Country game, they're difficult. They're not easy. You know, you can lose your lives and get stuck at a particular level. But this game introduces Funky Kong as a playable character.
Mm.
And I think it's kind of genius because Nintendo did this with a lot of their Wii U ports to the Switch, where they added something. Like they added something, for example, with Mario Kart 8, they added the battle mode, which everyone craved. With Donkey Kong, they added Funky Kong. And Funky Kong is basically you can jump on spikes, you don't get hurt, you can float a little bit more, so you can get across the bigger gaps, not needing the skill and timing of the rolls and all that kind of thing. So it's for anyone who was reluctant to get in this series or felt like, no, it's just, I remember the Donkey Kong games, they're beautiful, but they're frustrating. There is now an option for you as a player. And I have to give a shout out to my favorite levels. There is the levels are just gorgeous. So there's a level, for example, around tornadoes. It's very windy. You'll see cows flying around the background, and as you progress, a lot of the levels are dynamic. And this is what we saw in the original SNES game with the sunrise and sunsets, where they were a graphical leap for the games at that time. So yeah, you'd be moving along from left to right, and then later on there'll be lightning strikes, and it gets windier, and then suddenly you're chased by a tornado, and then suddenly you're in the tornado. So it's a very thrilling game, and every level is very very memorable. There are no duds. There's nothing dull at all about this game at all. But yeah, that's Donkey Kong Tropical Thieves. Might have sold you on it, Johnny. Do you reckon? I don't know. We'll see. We'll add it to the backlog, eh?
Oh no, it's got to go on the list. I'm got a lot of love for the Donkey Kong Country series from back in the day.
Yeah.
Can't say I've picked it up and played it recently. But yeah, no, it's got a lot of love for the good old DK.
Yeah, DK is a staple, and again, all in Smash. Moving
Yep.
on, we do have one more for Johnny to cover, which was one I have not played as well, but absolutely essential. And we only have a short amount of footage on this, so Johnny, what is this? Because some people would not have even heard of this game.
Yeah. So for people would probably be familiar with the OG Super Mario Brothers. And back in 2020, for the 35th anniversary of Super Mario Brothers, one of the things that came around in 2020 to celebrate that anniversary was they turned the original Mario Brothers into a 35-player battle royale game. So it was an online Switch Online exclusive. Um, very much in the style of Pac-Man 99 and other similar battle royales that have been on the Nintendo Switch. However, because it was the 35th year of Mario, it was you and 34 other players would battle it out online. Uh, Frantic fun running through the classic Mario levels, and it was all about trying to be the last Mario standing. Very important that you knocked out as many of the classic enemies like your Goombas and Koopa Troopers, because all the enemies you would flatten or knock over with a shell or knock out with your invincibility star. You'd be sending them off to the other screens, and that would help you eliminate the other players and get to that eventual glory of a number one spot. And that was thoroughly satisfying. It was I have some really good memories of having good friends over for a Mario 35 session, each of us having a go at trying to achieve that top one finish, running through these Mario levels. They're getting increasingly hectic as you go along. My personal favorite was going through the castles and seeing if you could knock out the Bowsers, so that Bowsers would
Ah, yeah.
appear in
Oh
random
no!
places. So you could be in the underwater level, and then a Bowser would be on top of you because another
Oh,
player
that's genius. That's genius. Breathing
seen
fire and all that kind of stuff, like the
all that
classic.
stuff.
Oh
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
yeah,
It
wow.
was just madness. The sad thing about Mario 35 though, it's so exclusive that it was only available for about 6 months back in.
Hmm.
So it sort of launched around, from memory, sort of towards the middle of 2020, and then by the end of March the next
Yeah,
year.
March
Yeah,
31st. It's got there.
yeah,
It's playable until. How strange,
yeah.
hey?
So it was just a temporary thing.
Yep.
Um, Amazing if you got to play it. It was an incredible experience. I sunk many hours into Mario 35, probably being up much later than I should have been on days before on a school night.
Oh,
Trying
yep.
to knock off another number one, which I only managed to do a couple of times, but it was so much fun, and I thought it was great. I sincerely hope that Nintendo at some point in the future brings it back. I'm sort of hanging out for Mario 40.
Nice.
So, 'cause
Yeah,
there was
yes,
so
yes.
much.
Very
Bring
true.
it. I think want. I think the big end should bring back the Mario Battle Royale, or maybe even bring it to, maybe you could do it with the Mario 3 game, for example, potentially. Um,
Yeah. Great
but
idea.
yeah, it was so much. It was so much fun, and people who have played it I think, will probably have similar memories of playing through Mario 35. Um,
Nice.
and there was like the rankings you always got to see at the end how you ranked against, and often I think playing in Australia, you often ended up with servers with players in Japan because of the time zones kind of similar. So it was always kind of a thrill to see your Western name in a list of like mostly Japanese names in the ranking at the end. Yeah, no, it was good fun. Yeah, definitely. Such a good exclusive that it could only be around for 6 months. Yeah,
Yeah, it's the very meaning of exclusive. It's so exclusive. Exclusive. It's not on the
yeah,
Switch anymore.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead, Johnny. Yeah.
I was just going to say, are you or perhaps Pat into your battle royale games? Have you played much of them?
Yeah, not as much. I never played this at the time. Just again, so many other games. I really do enjoy Mario, and I thought this was absolutely genius when it comes out. I can't speak for Pat. I don't know if he got in on this. He might have done. I just remember when this came out, it was just such a great way to connect Switch players globally and promote the Nintendo brand and pull in people to the online system, all in a positive way. So yeah, I didn't get to see much of it myself, but what I did want to ask you, just from what I'm seeing here, is one, I have to ask you about what rank you got, and were you happy with that? But two, there's a lot going on the screen. Do you look at the other players while they're playing and the enemies you send to them, or do you have space for that, or are you just trying to get through and hold on for dear life with your own level?
I'll be really honest with you. A lot of the time,
Yeah.
as it gets, like for the first one, when you've still got about 30 to 25 players, it's pretty crazy. It just feels like you're playing a game of Super Mario Brothers. But when it gets down into your sort of top 15, then especially down into your top 5, it get some, and each game can be a bit different depending
Yep.
on who's in the mix and playing, but
Mm.
it can get very frantic in that last 5. And the thing that happens, the game doesn't just let you keep going as you're going along. It will get your timer going quicker because
Oh,
it's trying
just anti-stress. Keep you
just to
going.
just to keep it going so that
Yeah.
your last 4 or 5 don't hang on for too long. So it adds that. Um, you do as much as you can look at peripherals to see where things are going and that kind of
Mm.
thing. But as it gets more intense, you're really just trying to avoid all the enemies that are coming in,
Yep.
trying to make your way, because you kind of go on a bit of a loop, and you can find
Yep.
your way. Something that like helped me get a couple of number ones. I only managed to get a number one a handful of times, but what
Yep.
helped me is if you really want to get back to your getting back to World 1-1 is kind of like critical, because you get all your power ups, you get your
Oh, okay.
star, because you want to get your star so you can sort of run. That was always the strategy I
I
remember.
saw that little bit of footage
Yeah,
there. I thought, when you get
yeah,
that star, everyone else is in pain train
yeah,
land, aren't they? You're
yeah,
just flying,
yeah,
sending all the
yeah.
spikes
So
over.
your World 1-1 is very much like your safety zone.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, so um, yeah, I think by the end, when it was getting close to being shut down, I think I was consistently finishing in sort of top 10.
Oh,
But
great.
getting that number one was always a challenge, because it was very fine margins, keeping your timer up, because you did keep your time up by eliminating Goombas and that kind of thing.
Okay.
And you got more time if you shot them with a fireball, you got maybe less time than when you actually jumped on them, because there's more risk with having to jump on a Goomba or a Koopa Trooper,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Especially
running
if
at
they're
them.
grouped together and you sort of
Yeah,
slip
yeah,
past,
yeah.
and everyone's
So
done that kind of side hit into a Goomba and
that's
died
it.
for it and
That's it. So
underestimated them.
yeah. So yeah, the reason I asked about like the battle royale, if you've had any experiences, I've noticed that recently Nintendo put out a new battle royale, but it's for F
Yes.
Zero, and
Yes,
I
we
don't.
covered that in the previous or the podcast
Yeah,
prior. We talked a little bit about that. But yeah, go
well, I haven't
ahead.
tried that out yet. I'm interested in. Like
Ah.
I hadn't played. I have played a little bit of F Zero back in the day, but
Yep.
uh, it's not a series I know like I know the original Super Mario Brothers kind of like the back of my hand. I can't say the same for F Zero, so
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
interested to see how it plays.
Yep.
Just to keep at that Nintendo Switch Online Battle Royale
Yep.
theme. But yeah, no, Super Mario 35 was a gem. I hope it comes back in some form in someday, but um, it was a point in time. Yeah, 6 months of a genius idea for a game. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Well, I've seen a bit of the F Zero. It's wonderful. And I think you are bang on the money in that when we see the Switch successor, they'll do something for the 40th anniversary, and it will be Mario 3 or Super Mario World, one of the most beloved games,
Mm.
remixed, reborn for a limited period of time, and gamers like you and I and new gamers will just get on there and love it. All right. Well, we do have one more game to cover today. Time is flying. We hope you enjoyed the show so far. This is my last pick of the day, the sixth and final pick. So, some of you may know what this game is, and some of you will have no idea. It came out in 2021. This is Metroid Dread. So, long-time Nintendo fans will know that Metroid is one of the many, many staple series of Nintendo. For those who have been following the Switch since its announcements, we've been hanging on for Metroid Prime for where is it? And finally, this year we got the remaster for Metroid Prime from the GameCube, which I've played and finished and loved. Mwah, wonderful. That's for another day. Metroid Dread, however, is my favorite Metroid of all the Metroid games. I've played quite a lot. Not as many as you, Johnny, actually, from what we were chatting about before. So it'll be good to hear your take on it. But Metroid Dread. Okay, so for a newcomer, essentially you're playing as Samus, who's a bounty hunter. The story it's not bare bones and it's not extensive, but it plays very much like kind of a bit like a horror, a mystery where you're trying to essentially your goal is you tend to land on a planet and you need to escape that planet for whatever reason and defeat some horrible final boss. There's more to it than that. Certainly, this game has a really great narrative to it. You're constantly interacting with this AI called Adam, who's this AI that you have on the ship. And I won't go into any spoilers, but it really pulls you along in a way that really keeps you invested and interested. It's a very kind of quiet game. It's not the kind of game you want to play if you love multiplayer games and you want to be with your friends. It can be a bit isolating, but if you like that experience, then this game is absolutely for you. For me, the strengths of this game is that it just has a really how do you describe it? Like a sleekness about it in terms of the moment-to-moment gameplay and how you move about the world. Running around is fantastic. So if you're running full speed and come up to a platform, Samus will just mount the platform very, very cleanly, and it'll be great. You can, when you're jumping between platforms and getting upgrades that let you latch onto like these spider platforms or let you shoot through the roof, it all feels very seamless. You don't feel like it's hard work. You don't feel like, there's unfair gaps or it's clunky or chunky. It just feels very smooth and very good to play, moving from room to room. Typical of the Metroid franchise, it's full of upgrades that are really kind of exciting and interesting. So a lot of your staples are there, so I don't want to spoil that. But the way they're dished out here is on quite a steady basis. So the gameplay is constantly fresh. I mean, every 10 minutes, I would say almost, or 10 to 20 minutes, you are doing something new or interacting in the environment in a new way. It looks great too. So what I found really surprising for Nintendo is that this is the game they kind of marketed with their mid-gen upgrade, which was the OLED, which is still a great purchase now. And so it should be. Like, it looks fantastic. It does have its limitations. It's not going to look like Assassin's Creed, for example, but it doesn't need to. It's kind of like Donkey Kong, where everything is very clearly represented on the screen. The use of color is fantastic. And you kind of know exactly what you're doing. You feel like you have good control of your character. But yeah, this is my favorite just because I think it's the most refined of the series. And for those of you who've played earlier Metroid games and have been following the story, so this is essentially Metroid 4 and separate from Metroid Prime. And its roots go back to Metroid on the NES and Super Metroid on the SNES, and then subsequent handheld versions. But for me, this is the most refined of the series. I love the narrative. I love that it's pick up and play. I've played it through twice. I'm itching for more. I love the battle system. So easy to shoot in that kind of 2D, 3D space, which you don't see a lot of again in games. It's not easy to pull off, a bit like Donkey Kong with platformers. I can't shut up about this game. I probably should. Johnny, you know a bit about the Metroid games. We had a chat about this. What is your take on Dread?
Dread is great. It's October now, so very much part of my Halloween gaming roster, Metroid Dread. I can easily say, although Link to the Past is my favorite game, my favorite series is easily Metroid, particularly 2D Metroid. Played a lot of the Metroid series. I have to admit, when I haven't finished. I've gone all the way through Metroid Dread yet. And at the start, I felt it was a little bit of a slow burn. Like, it took me a little while to get into it. But as I've played a little bit more through it, and as gotten a little bit more into that story that is told, I've started to appreciate it more. So it is sort of slowly rising up my list of favored 2D Metroids. And sort of waiting till I play through the whole game to see how I feel about it in the context of classics like two of my favorites are easily Super Metroid and
Mm.
Samus Returns, which is by the same studio that worked on Dread, I believe. But weirdly enough, it only released on the handheld 3DS
Yeah,
because
Switch port. Where is it?
yeah, I mean, having that game on, because that was itself, it was a remake of, or a remaster of, or reimagining, sorry, of
Mm, mm,
the Game Boy Return of Samus, from back in the day, and
mm,
just the studio that worked on, both these games, they just did an amazing job on the remake of, Metroid 2, essentially. Um,
mm,
and I probably have that one, despite it being limited to a handheld device. I probably have that one slightly higher than Dread at the moment, but
mm,
I'm sort of reserving judgment to see how as I get through the game. But yeah, like you say, the art style, the mechanics, everything I've experienced so far has been so enjoyable. It's definitely nailed this like spooky kind of moody atmosphere
mm.
of the Metroid games. Um, People over time, fans of the Metroid series have over time drawn the parallels the between Metroid games and the Alien movie franchise. They
Yeah,
kind
yep.
of they kind of evoke their same kind of atmospherics. And there's all been the little things like your main antagonist is
Yeah,
in the Metroid games is the Dragon Ridley. Alien was directed by Ridley Scott.
yep,
Little
yep,
things like that.
yep.
So yeah, no,
And Samus herself.
Samus as a female protagonist, which
Yeah,
back in the 80s, that was a huge reveal at the end of the OG Metroid.
yep.
If you completed the game in that certain time limit, um, um, the world lost its mind over this action character blowing up aliens and things is actually
Mm,
a female, which um, back in the day was a huge deal. But
yep.
yeah, it's such an iconic character in the Nintendo IP catalog. And yeah, looping it back to Smash, I'd have to say Samus is probably definitely one of my favorite Smash roster characters for sure.
Oh yeah, no. Samus has an excellent entry in Smash. And I'm really hoping that again, if we do see that extended Smash game, since Smash's release, we've seen wonderful games come out like Ring Fit, like you've brought up, or Metroid Dread, that I think would be very easy to put levels in and characters in. We've seen Amiibo release, for example, that people have really loved. So there's an absolute loop there, kind of like with Mario 35, that just works so well for Nintendo. But look, that's all we have time for. That's why we said we had 6 games to cover. We're coming to the end of the show. Johnny, it's been wonderful having you on. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, John, and I look forward to more great eps from you and Pat in the near future.
Yeah, thanks. And we do really look forward to doing a two-parter. There's just too many Switch games to cover. It was hard to get a list down, so we might just have 6 more coming for the people of Perth and beyond in the future. But as for today, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and that is the Perth Gaming Crew over and out.